On November 27, 1998, the Dreamcast is made a reality to the Japanese gaming public.
One of the key events for all game consoles is the Japanese launch. Japanese launches up to this point were something big. I mean, really big. The Japanese government requested companies to not launch their game systems during weekdays because it cut down on national productivity. Trains would be slowed down as they'd go by Akihabara, which is the electric town in Tokyo.
Japanese people loved good graphics. At that time, Dreamcast was very great graphics, so everyone was excited about it.
But the launch is not without its problems. Due to manufacturing glitches, Sega fails to meet shipping goals for the console.
So with Dreamcast, they missed their first window of opportunity because NEC was making their graphics chip, and there weren't enough available for a full launch. So a lot of people left stores empty-handed.
The image of the time of the Sega Dreamcast, I think, with the Japanese public looks like maybe Sega's turning over a new leaf. It was a new feeling for Sega, I think, and they really had a successful job of arousing interest in the public and showing that they were maybe ready to start something really strong here.
It was Sega's next big console after the Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn was a miserable failure for Sega, and they really wanted to get back into the race. So they put out the Dreamcast way before any of these next generation systems came out.
With the U.S. launch still more than a year away, Sega president Bernie Stolar takes note of the mistakes made by his Japanese partners.
And I was interested in rebuilding Sega, re-establishing the strength that it once had, both in software and hardware, and rebuild a team that became a world-class team to help drive an organization. And that's what I wanted to do, and I believe that the team did that. It's not about one individual, it's about a team.
What I can say about Bernie Stolar is that he did a lot of things really, really right. You compare the Japanese launch of Dreamcast to the US launch of Dreamcast, and Bernie had the publicity in place. He had the enthusiasts really rallied so that they were excited.
While Sega is poised to take the US by storm, Sony is set to shake up the video game world.
At every moment with Dreamcast, it was always kind of threatened by the looming shadow of this unshown thing. The shadow of PlayStation 2 always loomed large over it.
At the beginning, everyone was very excited and behind the Sega Dreamcast, but as time went on, more and more focus shifted towards the PlayStation 2.
As early as March in 1999, just really a couple of months later, Ken Kutaragi unveiled PlayStation 2. And it was so much more powerful than Dreamcast, and it could do so much more than Dreamcast.
Sony, frankly, was very effective in holding out that promise to gamers. I think to a certain extent they succeeded in convincing their existing PlayStation 1 audience not to get a Dreamcast and to wait until this mythical new system was going to appear.
The Dreamcast excites American gamers, with pre-orders for the console reaching 300,000, shattering the record of 100,000 set by the PlayStation in 1995.
We really had to reestablish ourselves as a company and gain the consumer confidence back.
And they were very, very aggressive, pushing the whole idea of Dreamcast. There was a lot of excitement about the Sega name at that point.
Less than 1 month before the launch of the Dreamcast, the team at Sega is dealt an unexpected blow.
Right before the day itself, Bernie was fired from Sega.
I didn't agree with who was at that then became my boss, Mr. Okawa. So we had a parting of the ways, and I left the company. It was unfortunate, but the team that I had built and the team that had really helped build the launch, they were in place. They were ready to go. They were ready to drive the product. And they did.
The Dreamcast juggernaut could not be derailed, and the system launched in the U.S. on September 9th, 1999 for $199.
I think what made the
Dreamcast is so great are really the games. Right from launch, it had a couple really great games. It had the Soul Calibur. Sonic Adventure was really popular. It had great football games with Sega's NFL 2K series. One of the other things that made the Dreamcast so great is the online feature. Out of the box, this came with a modem, this system. Immediately, you could be getting on and playing against other people across the country, and that was a real novelty back then.
Just 4 days after the U.S. launch, Sega reports selling 372,000 Dreamcasts and bringing in over $132 million.
The launch was successful, Sega was successful, and it regained the confidence of both the retail community and the consumer.
We knew the Dreamcast was a tremendously successful launch when retailers started calling us in week 2 and 3 saying, we're out of stock, we have to have more hardware, we have to have hardware, people are banging down our doors.
Sega tried to do all the things that they had done wrong with Saturn, right with Dreamcast. Saturn was very miserable to program. Dreamcast was a snap to program. Saturn had a very old-fashioned controller. It was really just a Genesis controller, still at the kidney bean shape. Dreamcast had a newfangled controller. They really looked and tried to do everything different. And that side of things was really good.
But would it be good enough to hold off the PlayStation 2?